This is me, Alex Cole, and this is going to be a serious video today. This video is also going to need a trigger warning for child abuse and sexual assault. So there it is. There's your warning. I've never discussed my experiences like this on any platform. I've vaguely mentioned some things that I'm going to talk about, and I was outed by a girl who was upset with me, who did out me as an abuse survivor, mixed in with some misinformation. So for anybody that heard that, I guess this will clear some things up. Where to start? I am personally a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and verbal abuse. I am also a survivor of a date rape when I was 23. I've never talked much about those things, and I never talked about any of it at all until I was outed about the childhood abuse. So this is all pretty new. I'm not used to this, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to make a video like this. There's also a stigma surrounding sex workers who have been abused, because people then assume that they do sex work because they've been abused. Personally, I do not believe that to be true in many cases, and I definitely don't believe it to be true in my specific case. Of course, I can't stop you from thinking what you want to think, but personally, it's not how I see it. Sex work for me has been extremely freeing and extremely liberating, and it has allowed me the ability to live a very happy and fulfilled life that I didn't have access to before sex work, at least without a lot more struggle for me and for people that I've supported over the years. There's a lot of benefits to sex work, but that's really not what this is about. There's a lot of benefits to sex work for me personally. I'm not saying it's right for everyone, but I'm getting way off track. Here's the rough stuff. I'll start at the beginning and work until now. I'm going to go off accounts from family and then also the little I can remember. When I was young, maybe 3, my grandmother walked into a room and saw my father shaking me violently by the shoulders, holding me up in the air and shaking and screaming in my face. He immediately stopped when caught and put me down and told her we had been playing. It wasn't addressed further. I don't blame her for that. He's an intimidating person. The next thing I know about is when my memories start, when I'm around 5, and that's when my dad started coming into my room at night and touching me. My dad never, I'll clear this up now because the person that outed me told people that I had been raped by my father, and also that I had fucked my father, insinuating that it had been consensual. We never had sex, consensual or otherwise. It was over the clothes touching, always. There was definitely the opportunity for a lot more to happen. But a big thing with his psychology is that he desired consent. We'll get into that. So from around the time I was 5, he would touch me over my clothes while he thought I was sleeping. Usually I would wake up, but I would not move. This went from the age of 5 to the age of 11 and was interspersed with infrequent moments of physical abuse, including breaking my arm once by pushing me out of a clubhouse playhouse thing onto a tree stump, because I'm sure in his mind I did something. Probably just wasn't doing what he wanted me to do in that moment. When I hit around 11, he started saying more things when I was awake. That's a cat. I'm filming this on a cat tree. Makeshift tripods. Gotta love them. Probably gonna edit that out. You done? Are you done? From the age of 5 to 11, that's when that happened. I broke my arm. We went over that. Cat interruption threw me off. I was doing pretty good. Doing pretty good there for a minute. It was around 11 when he was driving me to school, one morning. My brother liked to fake sick so that he wouldn't have to go to school because he always hated school. I always loved school. So I never wanted to miss school, ever. If I was sick, I would hide it so that I could go to school. So he was driving me to school alone. And he was telling me how my mom was an ice queen. My mom was a bitch. They were still married at this point and stayed married for 3 more years before he left. And telling me all these horrible things about her, calling her names on our way to school. And he told me she was all these things because she wouldn't have sex with him the way he wanted her to. And he was unsatisfied. And he was detailed about what he wanted her to do that she didn't want to do, and how long it had been since they had had sex. At the end of him ranting about Mom, he flat out asked me if I would like to go away with him and marry him and take my mom's place and become his wife and fulfill his needs, and that we would be so happy, just me and him, forever. We would just go away and get married, and that would be our life. He asked me that. And I was 11. And I said no. And I said no. And he was not happy about it. He was very sad and confused. And he was very just depressed. He seemed depressed and disappointed, and just the confusion, looking back on it, is just crazy that he thought I would say yes. And after that day, he never touched me again. After that, he never touched me again because it had ruined the fantasy for him, at least to that extent. And maybe because he knew that I was able to say that's wrong at this point. And maybe he was afraid of getting caught. I don't know. I'm just glad. He stopped. Never touched me again. And he never will. Ever again. Won't happen. Because he didn't stop being attracted to me after that. He just stopped what he was doing. 3 years later, they got the divorce, and my mom was completely destroyed. Could not function. He was extremely controlling. If she didn't fold his socks correctly, it would be a fight. And not much of a fight because she didn't fight back. And I never saw him hit her. I think he was too smart for that. Never saw him hit her. And that's good. So, at 14, he left her because she started asking questions about their finances. That's why. That's what got him to leave. And I was overjoyed. I was ecstatic. I wanted to throw a party, and no one understood why. Everyone thought I was the worst person. My family on his side hates me. Most of them. Not all of them. Some of them understood. My grandmother, his stepmom, knew what he was, and she always defended me. Always. Until the day she died. And she always hated him until the day she died. And he couldn't stand it. And I'll always be grateful for that. I don't know if I'm going to edit this emotion out or if I'm going to just leave it in. It's going to be a real long video if I leave it in. We'll just have to see. At 14 he left. He had gotten more angry, just progressively more angry ever since I had said no to his proposal. And I wasn't personally scared of him. It's hard for me to be scared of people at this point in my life, especially. It just is. And I'm sure that's because of stuff that happened. But I'm just not terribly afraid of people at this point. But you can be aware and not afraid. And you can prepare for the worst and not be afraid. When he moved out, I very quickly started sleeping in the living room for 2 reasons. I wanted to not be in my bedroom because I didn't like my bedroom for obvious reasons. The reason I was aware of at that time, I wasn't aware that I didn't like my room at that time. It makes sense now, but that wasn't in the forefront of my mind. What was in the forefront of my mind was he's not going to be able to handle that we're not his family anymore, and he's going to kill us. He's going to kill all 3 of us. So I'm going to sleep on the living room couch next to the door because that will allow me to alert the household when he breaks in, not if, when. That's how I thought about it. My brother and my mother will be able to escape the house, and he won't get to kill them. I wouldn't let him, and he, would kill me if I couldn't get away myself, and that was fine. I was okay with that. So from 14 to 20, when I moved out, almost 21, I slept in the living room on the couch next to the door, waiting. And when we would go for visitation, which was until I turned 18, I would ask my brother to wait in the house until I got out to the car. Never told him either. He might know now. Hi, bro. Because I think he knows about my YouTube channel. So that's not great, but I felt like I needed to make this video, so here goes. Anyway, he gets mad at me sometimes, and I've been thinking of telling him anyway, because he gets mad at me for being mean to Dad. My mom also gets mad at me for being mean to Dad, because if she could forgive all the stuff he did to her, she doesn't understand why I wouldn't be able to forgive what she knows, what little she knows about how he treated me. So I'm not mad at her for that either. That's my decision, to keep them in the dark. When I was 16, my dad got mad at me while we were in the car. My brother was in the car too. He was sleeping. Cars put him to sleep. So my dad pulled over the side of the road in the dark. It was the middle of the night. We were going home from a visitation. Made me get out of the car and walked me to the trunk. And he opened the trunk and he pulled out a loaded rifle. He said it was loaded. I don't know. There were other guns in there, total of 3 guns. He pulled out one of the rifles and he held it right in front of me and told me that I would never backtalk him again, or I knew what would happen. And he stood there for a long time. And part of me thinks he was thinking about it. But I don't know. Might have just been a scare tactic. And he put the rifle back in the trunk, told me to get in the car. I got in the car. He drove us home. And the next day, I convinced my mom to take me to the store so I could buy a pocket knife. And that's when I got my little Kershaw black flip knife that I don't have anymore, unfortunately, but I had it for 9 years. And I was real good with it. But I had to throw it away at the airport last year. So I got my knife. And I started thinking of ways I could kill him in the car if I needed to. There was a big heavy mag flashlight in the back of the car. I thought about using that. Thought about using my knife. I thought about a lot of things. I thought about crashing the car, but I never had to do any of that, and I'm glad. Life would be a lot easier if he was dead, but I'm glad I didn't have to do that. And even though he stopped touching me when I was 11 after the failed proposal. It's so weird that that's my life. After my dad proposed to me when I was 11, he got really depressed. But don't worry, he didn't stop flirting with me or saying weird sexual things. Like he would talk about gay people. Pushin' puddin' is what he would say when he wanted to be derogatory to my gay friends, among other things. He would talk very openly about sex with his new wife. That didn't last long. She had 2 small children, and I warned her in a restaurant the first time I met her. Not one of the first times, the first time I met her. Didn't meet her many times after that. Don't know if he knows I did that. But as soon as he got up out of the booth, away from the table, went to the bathroom, I told her that what he was. Part of me wasn't worried about those kids. Part of me isn't worried that he's going to do this to any other kids, because it's just me. He's told me it's just me. I've asked him why, and he's told me it's because I look like a perfect mixture of him and my mom. That I look like my mom, that I'm pretty and sexy like my mom, but that I have white skin like him. And that makes me perfect in his eyes. He's never stopped the infatuation with me. He's never stopped trying to find me since I moved. He's never stopped commenting about how attracted he is to me. He's never stopped any of it. So that makes me think it wasn't about me being a child. It was about me being me. Because I'm an adult now, and he hasn't stopped trying to find me, and trying to talk to me, and trying to change my mind, almost, is what I think. He's found 2 of my addresses. One I don't know how. The first one, I know one of his family members that I thought was a friend of mine gave him my address, and I've since cut off that family member. As of right now, I'm safe. He doesn't know where I live. I haven't heard from him. He doesn't have any of my contact information. I'm not on his insurance. That was weird. I was staying on his insurance. It was part of the divorce that we got to stay on his insurance if we wanted to. And free insurance, so I stayed on his insurance until my 26th birthday, and now I don't have that anymore. And honestly, I feel a lot better. Now there's nothing. There's no ties. There's no way for him to hear anything about my life unless he talks to my mother, who I have asked repeatedly not to share anything with him. So that's my story about my dad. I don't think I left anything out. If I did, I'll update this when I'm not as in my head. Honestly, in comparison, my date rape story feels like something so small. I was in a relationship that was open. I was allowed to see other people. I had been meeting people online for years, for like a year and a half to 2 years. I'd been meeting people online without issue. I met most of the people I had sex with in my vanilla life through the internet. I met this guy through FetLife. He's an ex-army dude. I don't know if that means he saw any duty. I don't think so. I think it just means he went through boot camp. That's another thing. My dad is a Marine, but he didn't see any action. He's extremely proud of it, but he didn't do anything. He just went through boot camp. So both of my assaulters have been military, Marines and Army. So that's something, I guess. That's an interesting coincidence. We met in person once without incident, but I had a real bad feeling. Always listen to your feelings. I didn't listen. I didn't listen to the voice in my head telling me, oh no, this one's trouble. So we saw each other a second time and we fucked. Like it was fine. It was dick. Nothing to write home about. I still didn't feel right about it. I was on edge the entire time. But that time I did consent. I completely consented. I have no bad feelings about what we did. It was the second time that we met for sex. I didn't realize we were meeting for sex. He thought we were. I didn't think we were. miscommunication there. Important. He took me to, I thought it was going to be so sweet and romantic almost. I was really surprised and impressed. He took me to, I drove to his home. I parked my car at his home. I left my cell phone in my car at his home. I didn't realize I had my purse with me, but I forgot the phone in the car. Shit happens. He drove us to the Strip, and we went in the big giant, you know what I mean, the big giant fucking Ferris wheel that everybody fucking loves so much and always wants to go on and never understands why I don't want to go on it. We went on that and everything was normal until we got to the front of the line. He started talking to the operators and I could not hear what he was saying, and he was talking to them for a long time, and I finally walked over and I could hear him, and he was telling them that it was our anniversary, and I was kind of laughing because it was a lie, and I had started to say, don't worry about it, we can just go up with everyone. But they ended up walking away and he talked to me for a second. He told me, no, I wanted us to be in it alone because I thought that would be really cool, and if you don't mind, like, I know it's lying, but I really wanted us to be up there alone because, you know, with all these people in there, it's going to be really crowded and you're not going to be able to see anything and it's going to be claustrophobic. It seemed normal. And I didn't like the lying, but it wasn't that huge of a deal, I thought. They came back and they said, yeah, no, you guys can totally go up alone. And I started feeling kind of weird about it. And we stepped into it and the doors closed and it was real quiet. And we went up and up and up. And we finally got to the top for our turn to stop at the top, kinda. Like, it slows down. I can't remember if it stopped all the way. And while I was enjoying the view, he had a backpack with him. And it didn't seem weird to me. A lot of people I know carry backpacks everywhere. Pulled a blanket out of the backpack, laid it down. I was like, what's that for? And he told me it was for him to sit on. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And I went back to looking at the view. And I was talking about the view and I was just chatting away like I do. And he told me to come over. And so I went over and he pulled me down onto his lap and kind of just held me for a second. That turned into groping and I pushed his hands away and I stood up, and from there, didn't exactly go my way. He ended up forcing himself on me on the blanket while I said no and I said stop. I said, I don't want to do this. And it didn't matter because on my FetLife profile, I had mentioned that this is my submissive days before I stopped being submissive. Yeah, I had mentioned on my profile that I had non-consent fantasies. We had never discussed my non-consent fantasies. He knew nothing about my non-consent fantasies. He knew nothing about what I wanted. He knew nothing about me. He wasn't a person I would have chosen to perform non-consent fantasies with, as he made me uncomfortable. And he didn't understand that in my non-consent fantasies, I don't say no. I don't say stop. I don't say I don't want to do this. In my non-consent fantasies, because I feel like I have to clarify, now that I know more about fetishes, it's more of an animal predator-prey thing that I was looking for. It's a agreed upon prior wrestling match, basically. This was not that. I'm actually a pretty strong person, but like I said, he was in the army, and I definitely wasn't putting all I had into it because I didn't want him to put all he had into it. He did not finish. I did get away, not before some stuff had happened, but I did get away. Another reason I was holding back was because I did not have my phone. I did not have access to my car. I was going to be stranded, and I know now, thinking clearly, that there were definitely options. Although I did not know his address, it was in my phone, so it would have been very difficult to borrow somebody's phone, log into FetLife, which I also had the password saved in my phone for FetLife. It would have been very hard to borrow someone's phone, remember my address for FetLife, explain to them why I needed to log into a sex site, look up his address, call someone that I knew, explain to them what had happened, get them to drive me all the way to his home, which was very far, retrieve my car without further incident. In my mind at the time, the best thing I could do was stop him first and then play nice in order to get back to my vehicle. So I did. I got him to stop. I went to the window and held on to the bar, little handrail, and I held onto the handrail with my arm through it until we got to the ground. When we got to the ground, I ran off and then I waited for him outside of it while he walked out, and we went immediately back to his car instead of doing all the fun things we were supposed to do that night, which he was very grumpy about. He did not understand why I was upset. He did not understand how upset I was. He thought I was pouting and that I was a grumpy. He didn't understand at all how much he had done wrong. And I didn't feel like explaining it to him until I was safely in my vehicle and on my way home. He bitched and whined about cutting the date short and about not finishing while he drove me back to his house. I jumped out of his car, keys in hand, unlocked my car door, got in, locked the doors, drove away immediately. Didn't touch my phone, didn't say goodbye, jumped in my car, and I drove home. And I didn't do much of anything when I got home other than run upstairs and tell my boyfriend exactly what had happened. And after that, I was much more careful about meeting people online. I don't actually remember if I met anyone online after that for sex until I started doing porn. And porn is great because porn is, at least when I do it personally, is all about verification and references. There's no guesswork. Those are my stories, and if you're out there and you have similar stories and you want to talk, I'm always around. You can always talk to me. If you're out there and you need help, talk to me. I'll listen. I'm not going to tell you what to do. To everybody who's been through this, men and women, because I know men who have gone through this too, and a lot of times they're left out, and that's not fair. Men and women, trans, cis, whatever, I'm here for you. It's not your fault. None of it's your fault. You did what you had to do to get through it, and I'm proud of you for getting through it and for being here and for being alive, because I know that's not easy. And I hope that if we have anything in common, this helps. I have not gone to therapy. I have coped in my own way. That's not to say that therapy is bad, but I feel like it's important to mention this because when I was outed, the person who outed me told people that I had fucked my dad and that I thought therapy was for the weak, and that because I wouldn't go to therapy, solely because I wouldn't go to therapy, I was garbage, and I was trash, and I was worthless, and I wasn't worth dating, and I wasn't worth being friends with until I would go to therapy. And I want to tell anyone out there who's coping in a different way, fuck that. You can cope however the fuck you want, as long as it's healthy and as long as you're not hurting anyone or yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that your coping is wrong. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not hurting myself. I'm living my life and I'm coping in my own way, and that's perfectly fine. And if you want therapy, get therapy. There's ways. If you're in Vegas, there's groups. There's groups that I know of that I can tell you about, but don't ever tell anyone coping without therapy is wrong or makes them lesser, because it's not true and it's not helpful. If anything, it has completely turned me off of therapy forever. I don't want to do it now because she has made it into a negative thing for me, but also because if that's what she learned in therapy, I don't want to go. If she learned in her therapy that people that don't go to therapy are garbage, I don't want to go to that therapy. I don't want to be in that. It's not anything I want to learn, and that's not anything I want to use to cope. So I guess that's it. That's everything I wanted to say. That's everything that needed to be said. That's everything that needed to be explained. I hope this has helped somebody in some way, even if it's just helping people to make sure that they check with people they're fucking about consent issues, because my date rape was all about miscommunication and entitlement. There's not a lot you can do about my childhood molestation or abuse except survive it. And if I could go back, I would have reported it. But by the time I had the desire and the mental capacity to report it, the statute of limitations had run out. And I decided not to report my date rape because I had just recently started camming. I had a promiscuous lifestyle, and he was a military veteran. Even if he'd never gone anywhere, I can't remember if he had or not. I did not think that pressing charges would go well for me, so I didn't. But I did tell him after I got home. I told him everything that was wrong, and he argued with me about it. And I didn't argue back. I just stated all of my truths and all of my facts and let him do with it as he would. And hopefully he realized, after thinking about it, that that was wrong. Hopefully. I cut off all contact after that. And I have reached out to my father, and I have told him exactly what I think about what he did and exactly what was wrong with it, and he has not agreed with me on any of it, and he has denied it to people that I've told, which is very few that he knows of. So I've covered, I think, all of the questions that I can infer will be asked in the comments. Whatever other questions you have, maybe I'll make another video addressing them, or maybe I'll just comment back. I don't know. We'll have to see. This is an extremely long video. If you've made it to the end of it, thank you for listening. I want you to know I'm fine, because I know people that love me are gonna watch this, and I'm fine. I'm crying a little bit, but I'm a happy person. I've cut all of that out of my life. I've coped. I'm healthy. I'm loved. I'm surrounded by joy on a regular basis, and I have you guys, and that's a lot. Don't worry about me. I'm just sharing, not a cry for help. So I'll see you guys next time I'm on cam, next time I'm on Periscope. I'll see you later.